rushes into a quiet suburban park, her breath uneven, her eyes searching for anyone to hold on to. She spots a man sitting alone on a worn wooden bench and moves toward him without thinking, as if something in him feels safe. Nearby, a German shepherd turns back from the distance, no longer chasing the stick, but locking onto something beyond her. People passing by see only a quiet man and his dog. They don't see who he used to be. A former Navy SEAL who notices danger before it arrives. When she reaches him and whispers, "Please, help me," the dog isn't watching her. It's already watching the men coming for her. Before we begin, share the city you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if this kind of story speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe and be part of the journey. Now, let's get into it. Late afternoon settled over a quiet suburban park in Eugene, where the light thinned gently across empty paths and the world seemed to move at a distance from itself. On a weathered wooden bench near the trail, Caleb Vance sat alone. His posture relaxed at first glance, but held with quiet control, the kind that never fully lets go. A former Navy SEAL, he carried the habit of awareness like a second instinct. His head barely moved, yet his eyes caught everything: the shift of footsteps, the change in rhythm, the small details most people never noticed. Even sitting still, he looked like a man who had never truly stopped being ready. A few yards ahead, his dog moved between the trees, chasing a stick with disciplined energy that never tipped into chaos. Caleb's hand had thrown it without thought, the motion practiced, almost automatic. This was how he kept the edges of his mind from slipping simple routines, repeated until they held. For a while, nothing disturbed that quiet. Then it broke. Footsteps cut across the path too fast, too uneven to belong there. Caleb's head turned slightly, not sharply, just enough. A young woman came into view, moving as if something behind her had weight and shape. She wasn't dressed for running, and her breath didn't follow any rhythm that could be sustained. Dark strands of hair clung to her face, and her eyes moved in quick, searching bursts, never resting long enough to feel safe. She reached him before she fully slowed. Her hand caught his sleeve, fingers tightening as though he might disappear if she didn't hold on. "Please, help me," she whispered, her voice fragile but urgent, like something trying not to break. "They're coming." Caleb didn't pull away. He didn't comfort her either. He just looked at her, really looked. People could rehearse words, but fear like that didn't come from imagination. It lived deeper, in the way her breath stuttered, in the way her shoulders never fully relaxed, even standing still. "My father-in-law," she added quickly, swallowing hard. "He's been hurting me. I ran. I didn't know where else to go." The words came out uneven, but the truth behind them held steady. Behind her, a soft disturbance moved through the leaves. The dog came back. Elena noticed it too late. The sound reached her first, soft, steady steps behind her. When she turned, it was already close, moving straight toward her. Bigger than she expected, its body tight with strength, each step controlled like it was closing distance on purpose. For a split second, it felt like it had chosen her. Her breath caught. She didn't move. Its eyes locked onto hers, sharp, unwavering. Not wild, but focused in a way that made her chest tighten. It didn't bark, didn't bare its teeth. That silence made it worse. It looked like something that didn't need to threaten before it acted. Caleb's voice cut in, calm and low. "He won't hurt you." A brief pause. "Not unless he has a reason." She didn't understand, but she held still. The dog reached her, then past her. So close, she could feel the shift of air as it moved by. Its attention slipped off her completely, like she was never the target. Its head turned, body lowering slightly, focus locking onto something behind her. Elena felt it then, that change, that tightening in the space around them. The dog wasn't coming for her. It had been coming through her. It stopped beside Caleb, slightly ahead of him now, body angled toward the path, steady and ready without a single command. Caleb followed its line of sight, and then he saw them. The man at the front carried himself with a kind of ease that didn't belong to ordinary concern. His steps were measured, his expression composed in a way that suggested control rather than worry. Walter Cross looked like someone used to being listened to, the kind of man who didn't need to prove authority because he assumed it was already there. The two men behind him didn't match that calm. One carried his weight heavily, shoulders slightly forward, as if always ready to push through something. The other moved with restless energy, his eyes flicking from one detail to another, never settling long enough to trust what he saw. Walter's gaze found Elena first, then shifted to Caleb with quiet assessment. When he spoke, his voice carried a practiced warmth. "There you are," he said, as though this were nothing more than an inconvenience. "You've had everyone worried." Elena's grip tightened. Caleb felt the tremor through his sleeve. "She's not well," Walter continued, turning his attention to Caleb, his tone calm, almost apologetic. "My daughter-in-law isn't in a good state. We just want to take her home." The words were smooth, reasonable, designed to land clean. Elena shook her head, barely able to form the sound. "He's lying." Caleb didn't look at her. He didn't need to. What he saw was enough. Around them, the park continued as if untouched. A couple slowed their pace, watching just long enough to understand this wasn't something they wanted to step into. Then they moved on. Distance was easier than involvement. It always was. Caleb rose from the bench, not abruptly, but with a kind of inevitability. The space shifted with him. What had been open ground narrowed into something defined, something measured. The dog moved as well. No command, no hesitation, just understanding. Elena's voice dropped again, almost lost in the space between breaths. "Please, don't let them take me." Caleb's eyes stayed on Walter, calm, steady, unmoved by the version of truth being offered to him. He didn't answer her, but the way he stood just slightly in front of her, just enough to change the line between them, said everything she needed to hear. Caleb didn't react right away, but something in his eyes had already changed the moment he looked at Elena. Fear like that didn't come from confusion. It came from repetition, from knowing exactly what was coming next. He rose slowly from the bench, not rushing, not making a show of it, just shifting his position by half a step enough to place himself between her and the three men ahead. Rex changed with him. The loose movement from moments before disappeared, replaced by something tighter, more deliberate. His body leaned forward slightly, weight distributed with precision. Each step he took was small, measured, as if he were mapping distance and angles at the same time. His ears stayed forward, his back subtly curved, not in tension but in readiness. Walter kept his voice calm, but the softness in it was gone. "You don't understand the situation," he said, addressing Caleb as if explaining something simple. "She hasn't been stable since my son passed. Daniel, he worked construction, a decent man. After the accident, something in her changed." He paused, letting the words settle as if they carried reason. "We're not here for trouble. We just want to take her home, get her the help she needs. Don't let her pull you into something unnecessary." Behind Caleb, Elena's fingers tightened, her voice barely holding together. "He's lying. He hurts me." One of the men behind Walter stepped forward just a fraction, then stopped when his eyes dropped to Rex. "That dog should be on a leash," he muttered, trying to sound dismissive, but the hesitation in his voice gave him away. Caleb didn't look at him. He decides that. The space between them shifted again, narrowing without anyone clearly moving first. No one gave an order, but the tension built anyway, quiet and steady, like something waiting for the smallest push. Walter adjusted his tone, lower now, edged with something sharper. "Do you realize how this looks?" he said. "A man sitting alone in a park with a young woman who's clearly unstable. I can make one call and explain exactly what you're doing here." Caleb met his gaze without blinking. "You can try." The heavier man behind Walter let out a short laugh, forcing it more than feeling it. "It's just a dog." When he took another half step, the response came faster than thought. A sharp snap cut through the air, jaws closing with force just short of contact. It wasn't a miss, it was a warning. The reaction was immediate. The man jerked back, swearing under his breath, his footing slipping for a second before he caught himself. The other one froze completely, eyes locked on Rex, shoulders tightening as if his body had already decided not to take another step. Don't let that thing near me," he said, his voice thinner now, whatever confidence he had just moments ago gone without a trace. Walter didn't step back, but for the first time, he said nothing. His eyes moved briefly from Rex to Caleb, recalculating, measuring something that hadn't been part of his plan. Caleb spoke quietly, each word clear. She said no. Nothing else followed, but it was enough to settle into the space between them. The tension tightened further, pulling everything inward. Another step from either side would be enough to break it. And then, a distant siren cut through the silence. Faint at first, then clearer as it moved closer along the road beyond the park. The shift was immediate. One of the men turned his head. The other exhaled sharply, stepping back without meaning to. Walter remained still for a moment longer, then glanced toward the sound, his expression tightening just slightly. Not here. Not now. He took a step back. This isn't over, he said, the calm gone from his voice. Caleb didn't respond. Walter turned, the two men falling in behind him without another word. Their pace was controlled, but quicker now, their earlier confidence replaced by something more careful. Within seconds, they disappeared beyond the trees. Rex didn't follow. He stayed where he was, watching until they were completely gone, his body still angled toward the path as if the moment hadn't fully ended. Only when the space was empty again did he shift, the tension easing just slightly. The siren passed by without stopping. Silence returned, but it didn't feel the same. The apartment door closed with a soft click, but Elena still turned slightly, as if expecting it to open again. Her body hadn't caught up to the fact that she was no longer being followed. Caleb noticed, but didn't say anything right away. He moved through the space with quiet familiarity, setting things in place without thinking, giving her time to settle into the silence. Rex stopped near the entrance, not lying down, not relaxing, just holding his position as if the outside world hadn't fully lost its grip yet. Elena stood there for a moment longer, then exhaled slowly and sat down. Her hands stayed close to her body, fingers tightening and loosening without purpose. It took time before she spoke. I don't think I've ever actually stopped running, she said, her voice low, not asking for a response. Caleb leaned against the wall, watching, listening. I don't remember my parents, she continued. I was told I was left outside an orphanage, 5 months old. A faint pause. After that, it was just different houses, different names. Some kept me for a while, some didn't. She looked down at her hands, as if they belonged to someone else. You stop asking why after a while. You just try to be easier to keep. Caleb's expression didn't change, but something in the way he stood shifted slightly. Then I met Daniel, she said, and for the first time, something softer passed through her voice. He didn't look at me like I was temporary. He didn't ask me to be anything different. She stopped, not finishing the thought. Silence filled the space again, but it didn't feel empty. He's gone now, she added, quieter. And after that, it was like I stayed, but everything else changed. Caleb nodded once. And Walter? Elena's jaw tightened. At first, he just blamed me. Then it got worse. Not all at once. Just enough each time that I kept telling myself it wasn't what it was. Rex shifted slightly at the door, his ears flicking toward her voice. I tried leaving before, she said. He always found a way to bring me back. Said I didn't have anything outside that house. That no one would believe me. Caleb pushed off the wall. We can prove it. She looked up at him, uncertain. How? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached for his phone and stepped aside, making a call. The man on the other end answered quickly. Lucas Grant didn't waste time on greetings. His voice carried the tone of someone used to sorting through complicated situations without emotion getting in the way. Caleb kept it brief. Domestic abuse. Ongoing. No official reports. No solid evidence yet. Lucas was quiet for a second. Then you don't have a case. Not one that holds. Caleb glanced toward Elena. There has to be something. There is, Lucas replied. You just don't have it yet. Medical records, video, anything documented. Without that, it's his word against hers, and you already know which one sounds more convincing. The call ended shortly after. Caleb returned, his expression steady, but more focused now. He records everything? Elena nodded slowly. He has cameras, inside the house. Said it was for security. A small pause. He showed me once, when he was drinking. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. You remember where? Another nod. And the door code. That changed things. The next night came quietly. The house stood dark, exactly as Elena described. Caleb moved without hesitation, entering with the code she gave him. Rex followed close, silent, his attention shifting immediately as they stepped inside. The air felt different in here, heavy, unused, like something had been left sitting too long. Caleb moved carefully, not rushing, checking each room with methodical precision. Rex didn't wait for instruction. He began moving on his own, slower than before, nose close to the floor, pausing at certain spots, then moving again. He stopped near a cabinet. Caleb followed. Inside, he found the first camera system, exactly where Elena had said. That was one piece. But Rex didn't stop. He moved again, deeper into the house, then paused near a closed drawer. He didn't scratch or bark, just stood there, focused. Caleb opened it. Inside were papers. At first, they didn't look like anything unusual. Then he started reading. Letters, dozens of them, all addressed the same way, all written over years, different handwriting, same intent. He flipped through them, faster now. Search notices, contact attempts, official documents tied to missing persons, and then something else. Bank records, withdrawals, signatures that didn't match. The pattern formed quickly, too quickly. This wasn't just control, it was deliberate. When Elena saw them later, she didn't speak right away. She just stared, her hands hovering over the papers like touching them would make them disappear. These are... Her voice faltered. Caleb didn't interrupt. My mother, she whispered. She was looking for me. The words came out slowly, as if her mind needed time to accept what her eyes already saw. More pages, more proof. She found me. Her breath caught, and he hid it. The realization didn't hit all at once. It spread, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left for it to go. Everything she had believed about her life, about being unwanted, about having no one shifted under her all at once. Her knees gave slightly, and she had to sit down. I wasn't just... She struggled to finish. Caleb's voice came quiet, steady. No, she looked at him, eyes filled with something deeper than fear now. I lost them, she said. All this time, I thought I didn't have anyone. Rex moved closer, stopping just near her, not touching, but present. Elena lowered her head, her shoulders shaking once, then again. This time, it wasn't fear. It was something breaking open. By the next morning, the documents were no longer in Caleb's apartment. Lucas had them, and things began to move quietly, but with direction. Calls were made, records checked, names matched against systems that had ignored them for years. When Lucas called back, his voice carried something new. We found her, he said. Your mother. Elena didn't respond right away. The word didn't feel real yet. She's been looking for you this whole time, he added. That night, the meeting was set. Caleb didn't push her. He only asked once if she wanted it to happen here. She said yes. When the door opened, neither of them moved at first. The woman stood there, hesitant, as if stepping inside might confirm something she wasn't ready to face. Elena stayed where she was, her thoughts louder than the silence between them. You found me, Elena said quietly. I never stopped, the woman replied. That was enough. They moved toward each other, slowly at first, then without hesitation. The embrace wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It held years of distance, confusion, and something that had refused to disappear. Caleb stepped back, giving them space. Rex stayed nearby, calm, no longer watching the door. They talked in fragments. Her mother spoke about the years of searching, the letters, the false leads, the moment Walter came to her with a calm explanation that Elena was safe, married, happy, just not ready to reconnect. I believed him, she said, her voice unsteady. I thought I was doing the right thing by staying away. Elena lowered her gaze. I thought no one came for me. I did, her mother answered, firm this time. I just didn't know how close I was. That changed something. Not everything, but enough to begin. The case grew quickly after that. Lucas passed everything forward. Investigators followed the records, uncovering more than just one man's control over a single life. There were accounts tied to missing funds, properties that didn't exist on paper, transactions that had been hidden behind layers of false identities. When Walter was arrested, it wasn't loud. No resistance, just the end of something that had relied on silence for too long. The trial came months later. Elena didn't need to say much. The documents spoke clearly. The recordings confirmed what had been denied. The financial records removed any room for doubt. The verdict came without delay. Guilty, on every charge. She didn't feel relief the way she expected. There was no sudden release, no moment where everything became light again. What came instead was quieter, something that allowed her to breathe without waiting for something to go wrong. She moved in with her mother soon after. They didn't try to rebuild everything at once. Some days they talked, some days they didn't. They learned each other slowly, without forcing what had been missing for years. But Elena kept returning to Caleb's place, sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit. The space felt different now, not like a place to hide, but somewhere she didn't have to explain herself. Rex adjusted too. He no longer stayed near the door as much. When Elena sat, he stayed close, quiet, steady. The idea came gradually. A place for people who had nowhere to go, not just shelter, but something more stable. Elena brought it up first, unsure if it made sense outside her own thoughts. Caleb didn't dismiss it. He thought about it carefully, then nodded. Lucas helped with the legal side. The recovered money became the foundation. The space wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. People started coming. At first, only a few, then more. Some didn't trust anything. Some didn't speak. Some stayed only a short time. Elena didn't push them. She understood too well what it meant to feel like leaving was easier than staying. Caleb made sure the place held together, quietly, without needing recognition. And Rex changed the most. Children who refused to talk would sit near him first. Adults who kept their distance would watch him before they spoke to anyone else. He didn't approach. He didn't force connection. He just stayed. And that was enough. One evening, Elena stood outside the center, watching the day settle into quiet. "I used to think I had nothing," she said. Caleb stood beside her. "And now?" She took her time answering. "Now I know I was wrong." It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a beginning she could choose. Some stories don't arrive with noise or grand signs. They come quietly, in a moment when someone chooses not to walk away. A man who could have stayed seated stood up. A woman who believed she was alone found out she wasn't forgotten. And a loyal dog who simply stayed where he was needed most. Maybe that's how God works in our lives too. Not always through miracles we can see right away, but through people placed in our path at the exact moment we need them. A stranger who listens, a hand that doesn't pull away, a presence that reminds us we're not alone, even when it feels like we are. For those who have lived long enough to carry both joy and loss, you know how rare those moments are, and how much they matter. Maybe today is a good day to reach out to someone you've been thinking about. A call, a message, even a simple "I'm here" can mean more than we realize. If this story stayed with you, you might consider sharing it with someone who needs a little hope right now. And if you feel like it, leave a comment about where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your story too. Wherever you are, may God watch over you, bring peace to your home, and guide your steps